Hi, Claire here, coming to you from Irene. You can't see me, but you can see everything in front of me, and that's far more important. We're continuing our series on using stencils in your quilting, and today I'm going to show you one of Cindy Needham's great border stencils. Borders can always be a bit tricky when it comes to quilting them, and having a stencil, especially like this one, if it helps you to get around those tricky corners, it can be really, really great. So if you've been on another planet and you haven't yet met our trusted friend, the Pounce Pad, then this is going to be your friend. This one has seen some action. It's got thread on it, but this is going to help you to transfer your design. So Cindy's stencils, they have center lines. So if you have a border, you're going to mark your own center with the chalk, and then you can put this dotted line of her centers for her border over your line, and then just pounce over the top. Just takes out so much of the effort. There we go, and I've got my lines there. And then if I want to extend it across, my fabric's not so big, but I can line up the previous block here with the one that is pounced and continue pouncing on to get my full outline. You'll see on Cindy's stencil here, it also has a smaller border. If you buy the sets of these, then they're normally multiple sizes. This is the 2 and the 4 inch. So you can do a really nice little design here in a sashing, or this can be a wider one in a border. So if this was actually on my quilt, I would have a sashing line most likely that would come along here. There and down. My border, it could be a little bit wider, so it could be that it comes literally to the points of the squares, or it might just be a little bit wider and that those squares are floating inside the border. So when you're designing what you want to quilt, you just need to bear that in mind. I've put together a few little designs, so let's have a look at those. So here's my number 1 design. It's taking those exact squares that are going around the border, and I've given myself the boundaries of the border. So that would be the piecing lines, the fabric lines, and that comes out to exactly the points of the squares. So quilting this one, I'd first probably quilt the squares, so using a ruler, it's going to be the easiest. Quilt around the squares, all the way around the border. Okay, so we're going to come into the block, echo it using the lines on the ruler, like that. Do my ribbon candy in the center, da 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 da, and move on through to my next block. This one here on the corner, I'm going to do the same. Do my ribbon candy, but just take it right through so that it's going in the same direction. Once I reach that point there, I can just stitch back down on that line. So I'm just backtracking on the line. If I'm using a ruler, it should be nice and accurate, so it shouldn't be a problem. And then I can access my next block here. Once you've quilted those center squares and your ribbon candy, you'll find that you've got relatively dense quilting in those areas and nothing in the outside sections of the triangles around. That's going to mean they're going to be a bit wavy and a bit puffy, so you're most likely going to want to put some quilting in them. Here I've just kept it nice and simple, back and forward lines. You can use the Versatool straight line section of the Versatool to help you, or you can even just do it freehand and by eye. If it's on horizontal lines here and on vertical lines there, it's relatively easy because it's working favorably with the carriage and the tracks on your machine. So you can probably do it just freehand, but if you want to use a ruler, then that is also great. So that's option 1. That one's relatively simple. Option 2 here, yeah, you know us, we love feathers, so this one had some feathers. Again, I quilted the outline of the blocks, and then I would start with my feathers. Now, I'm a bit of a stickler. I like to quilt first the spine. I find it gives me a much neater result. So I'm going to stitch up, and I'm actually just going to come straight back down and do my feathers then. You can probably do a couple of pairs on either side. That allows you then to carry on through the design and not have to go up and down that spine too many times. It takes you onto the next block, so you can go around that one. The corner one is a little bit more tricky, just trying to get your feathers to bend. So I put kind of a dividing line. You grab a different color pen. I put a dividing line here, just on that inner triangle, so that I can quilt up to the line and come around the corner and bend around to do coming this direction. You could choose to just continue this block with the entire feather going up and then stitch down and continue then this one going that way. It's entirely up to you, whatever you prefer. Again, you need something in the background to the squares. You can't just leave it without anything, because the density here compared to no quilting there is going to make it bubble. So I've tried to keep it simple. I've just done echoed lines. So using the ruler with the spacings given by the ruler, you can make it 1/2 inch. That's more than enough. You don't need it more dense than that. And just echo around, filling in. I like the contrast of feathers with straight lines. And this one is a little bit different to just doing your normal piano keys. So then if this was my block here, piano keys, you would probably quilt like this. This one, the lines are echoing the shape of the squares, which I think is quite effective. Okay, the next one that I did was just a relatively simple continuous line type of design, continuous curve. Again, I would stitch my squares down, and then I've done just a C curve, and then inside done a loop. But on this you can only do half of the way around with the loops, because you need to access the next block. So then I can do the C curves, I can do halfway around, access the next block. Now I have to look carefully that I don't cut myself off from being able to finish the block. So here I'm just going to do one loop to access this next block. Come around, and okay, so this is finished. I can then do the full 4 loops. This one I can finish the 3 that hadn't been done, and then I'm going to do the 2 and the 2. Once I've done that, if you look at it, then you're going to have not enough quilting in your outside triangles. So I've echoed, if I can put it that way, just repeated the design that I've done, just made a long C curve with a loop. So I've done the C curves all the way around and then come back and done the loops. And here in the little corner, I just added an additional loop just to fill up the space so that it wasn't puffy there. Alright, getting through the designs. This is just a cute one that I came up with. I was just playing. So here, I don't think I'm even going to quilt the square. A stencil is just a guide, so you can do whatever you like with it. It's just helping you to think of ideas and to get your spacing right, so that kind of thing. So in this case, you can just use a circular ruler. Maybe the end of the versatile could help you. The versatile's got those 2 curves, so you could use either end. One's going to give you a more bulgy kind of curve, one's going to give you more shallow. So you can just work your way around. I would probably do like this to start with. Do the outside triangles, the outside circles first, and then do the inner ones like this. So it's also a continuous line kind of design. You want to do it with as few starts and stops as possible. When you get here, you can make a curl just to flatten that center part. Make a curl and move on. Make a curl, come around the corner, curl and move on. With this one, if this is my border here, the full extent of the border, that circle pretty much fills it. The densities are similar. I've got quite big open spaces here that are similar in size to this piece there. So in this case, I don't think I actually need to put anything in those outside parts. If I really wanted to, maybe I could put another echo kind of like this, but I'm not sure that it's really necessary. That one's for you to decide, and sometimes it's best to decide when you're actually in front of the quilt because you see whether it needs it or not. All right, then I looked at the the smaller one. Let's bring this back quickly. On Cindy's stencil, there were 2 different sizes, right? This was the 4-inch, this is the 2-inch. On some of the designs that I've just shown you on the 4-inch, you wouldn't be able to do it on the smaller size. It's just going to be too much detail and too small an area to fit in that kind of thing. So you have to look at the scale of what you're working with and decide whether it makes sense. So smaller things generally need simpler kind of designs. So here's a very, very simple one, but I've used it very effectively on quilts as well. So I would have quilted the diamonds or the squares first, and then I've really just filled in those triangles with back and forth lines. Again, you can do it with a ruler or you can do it freehand. It's a really, really nice design, and it means that these triangles pop up, and the way that the fabric pools, it actually makes them look three-dimensional. It makes them look as though there's like a point here and they have a high point here and then it pulls down into the corners. It's actually very, very pretty. And as a final parting gift, I had a look at this one. I wanted to work with the squares that were in the design, but then I thought, what can we do with circles? So this is a 2-inch width. So if you have a 2-inch circle, you will have that in the half circles. The handy quilts are half circles. The very, very smallest of the shapes is a 2-inch circle. Then you can quilt. So you would go 1.5 times, 1.5 times, 1, and you'd have to go a half, and then here you're going to change the direction. 1.5, 1.5 to move through your design. I thought that one was quite a cute one. Again, if it's in your sashing like this, it's filling the area nicely. You don't need to put anything else in the outside. So remember, your stencils are just a guide. Use them as that and look and see how you can develop patterns around them, and just have some fun. Talene will be back to show you some more things next week. So until then, happy quilting.